He hadn't meant to open that door. Jace Morgan stood frozen in place. His breath caught halfway in his throat as a heavy, humming seal slid shut behind him with finality that felt almost ceremonial. The air in the chamber was scented with something floral, but alien, like a bloom grown under a different sun. Before him stood 6 women, each impossibly tall and ethereal, their pale skin glowing softly under the gold lace light that lined the curved walls. They stared back at him with eyes that shimmered like liquid metal, unblinking, calculating. This wasn't the infirmary. It had been a long day aboard the Varelian Ark, a city-sized alien vessel orbiting above Tau Ceti and Jace. An Earthborn language tech on his 3rd week of cultural assimilation duty had taken a wrong turn on his way to the recharge pods. The corridors were a maze of seamless archways and holographic inscriptions that shifted based on the reader's origin. Something in the translation matrix must have slipped because the glyph on the door definitely hadn't said dressing room. And yet here he was. The women didn't scream. They didn't cover themselves or retreat. They simply stood, draped in flowing white garments that shimmered like water held in fabric form, watching him with something between amusement and clinical curiosity. Their hair ranged from ivory to shadow black, intricately braided, some interwoven with tiny silver rings that clicked softly when they moved. Each of them was near identical in body structure, but different in expression, posture, and presence, like iterations of design with minor aesthetic adjustments. He took a slow step backward, raising his hands. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to intrude. The sign said, well, actually, it didn't say anything not clearly, and I think I might have. You entered of your own volition, one of them said, her voice cool and resonant, though her mouth hadn't moved. It echoed inside his skull, a clear thought shaped into language by the neural translator embedded behind his ear. Telepathic relay. Jace blinked. I didn't know this was, occupied. Another one stepped forward. Her skin was slightly iridescent, and her eyes gleamed with mischief. Occupied, yes. Forbidden, no. The others began to move now, slowly, like a tide adjusting itself. They closed the space between them and him, not threateningly, but with intent. Their bare feet made no sound against the metallic floor. Jace's heart hammered in his chest, sweat prickling the back of his neck. He had no idea what the protocols were for walking on alien nobility, or what they even were. But something told him this wasn't the kind of mistake that ended with a scolding and a demerit. He turned to the door. It remained shut, seamless, no visible panel or sensor. A soft pulse flickered near the archway, but when he reached out, the panel gave no response. No exit until selection is complete. Another voice said. He turned slowly. Selection? You enter the chamber of echoes, said the one closest to him, stepping within arm's reach. She tilted her head as she studied his face. Her features were impossibly symmetrical, lips full and unpainted, brows like lines drawn by ancient cartographers. The chamber does not open by accident. It answers a call. Jace almost laughed. I assure you, I didn't call for anything. I was looking for the sanitation deck. The 6 women shared a glance. Not a single expression changed, yet he could feel something pass between them, like a silent agreement. The air grew warmer, more charged. One of them reached out, and before he could flinch away, her fingers brushed his chest. Her skin was cool, but tingled with static. She traced the edge of his collarbone, eyes narrowing in thought. He is unmarked, she murmured aloud this time. Another nodded. No house, no bond. An untouched path. A blank speaker, whispered the one with the silver ring braids. How rare. Jace swallowed hard. Okay, I think there's been a serious misunderstanding. I'm not whoever you think I am. You are Jace Morgan, Earthborn, 2nd-tier linguist, level 4 clearance, said the first speaker, her voice now slightly amused. You are not who we expected, but you came when called. That is enough. The room's light dimmed slightly. A soft hum began to rise from beneath the floor, and the walls shimmered as if reacting to some invisible cue. Jay stepped backward instinctively, but again, the door behind him offered no escape. This is a mistake, he said, his voice firmer. I'll go. I'll pretend I never saw anything. You don't have to. Whatever this is, just let me out. "It has begun," said the lead woman with a strange softness. "We cannot unbegin what has already heard your presence." The six of them now stood in a loose arc around him. A rhythm began to pulse from the walls, matching the beat of his heart, or maybe altering it. The chamber responded to them, or to him. He wasn't sure anymore. One by one, they raised their hands and placed their palms over their own chests, then extended those same hands toward him. Their eyes glowed faintly. In unison they spoke, "One who walks unseen shall now be known." It was like being struck by a soundless wave. Jay staggered, a deep vibration coursing through his bones. His skin felt hot, then cold, then inexplicably heavy, like gravity had suddenly grown sentient. His legs gave out, and he dropped to one knee. A rush of images tore through his mind. Shapes, symbols, songs made of light. He saw things that made no sense. A tree burning underwater. A sky cracking like glass. 6 silver figures standing in a circle of mirrors. Their language, ancient and impossible, tried to graft itself onto his brain, to stitch its logic into folds of his perception. He gritted his teeth and forced himself upright. The women watched, silent, waiting. "I don't know what this is," he gasped, "but I didn't come here for a ritual. I don't want to be part of." "One is irrelevant," the lead said, stepping forward until they were nearly chest to chest. "You are already within the circle." He stared at her. "Why me?" She tilted her head again. "Because you didn't expect this. And neither did we." The chamber pulsed once more, and this time a glowing sigil flared to life on the back of his right hand. It hovered just above the skin, floating light in motion like a living tattoo. Jay stared at it in horror and awe. "What does it mean?" he whispered. "It means the chamber has chosen to begin its cycle through you," she replied. "It means you are now a thread in our loom." "I didn't agree to anything," he said. The woman with the silver ring stepped beside the leader. "You walked in. That was agreement enough." The others began to disperse around the room, their movements purposeful. Some reached for long, crystalline rods. Others pulled down soft, glowing fabrics from invisible alcoves. They spoke in tones too subtle for his translator to parse, weaving words and gestures in tandem. Jace remained standing at the center, trembling, not with fear now, but with a creeping realization. This wasn't just a dressing room. This was the beginning of something much larger, and he was already too far inside to turn back. The walls shimmered with a pulsing rhythm as the 6 women moved in concert, their robes trailing behind them like waves on a slow tide. Jay stood at the center of the chamber, dazed, the glowing symbol hovering above the back of his hand like a soft flame. It pulsed in time with the chamber's ambient hum, responding either to him or to something deeper, something he had yet to understand. He took a cautious step, the sigil flaring brighter, casting geometric patterns across his bare chest. "You said, 'I've been selected.' For what?" The woman who had first spoken, tallest among them, with irises like quicksilver, turned back to him. Her name had not been given, but he had begun to think of her as the leader, or perhaps the interpreter. She tilted her head slightly, considering him as if she were still trying to decide whether he was a miracle or a mistake. "For the ritual of echoes," she said, "you are now the center of the alignment, the chosen point of resonance." "I didn't choose anything," Jace muttered. "This isn't fair. I walked in by accident. I didn't mean to interrupt." A second woman, smaller in frame but no less radiant, spoke gently as she passed near him. "Intent is only a fragment of truth. The chamber responded to presence, not purpose." The others had begun assembling a series of artifacts around the room. Slender rods of crystal, a basin filled with translucent liquid that shimmered with its own inner light, and floating discs etched with spiraling glyphs. Jace watched them, each movement coordinated, almost choreographed, as if they had rehearsed this moment countless times. He looked down at the glowing mark on his hand. It rotated slowly, shifting form like a living diagram. "You said I'm a speaker," he said, louder now. "What does that mean?" The leader approached him again, this time placing a hand lightly on his chest. It was a gesture that startled him not for its boldness, but for the absolute calm it carried. "It means you are a vessel through which understanding flows." The Chamber of Echoes chooses those who bridge division, who resonate with truth across boundaries. But I'm just a translator, he said. I know languages. I'm not some cosmic conduit. Her expression softened. Translation is the art of shaping thought into form. You wield a delicate power without knowing it. This ritual does not require perfection, only presence. The basin in the corner began to glow brighter. Two of the women circled it, murmuring softly. The air shifted, thickening, not in temperature but in weight. Jace felt it pressing against his skin, like a subtle force field bending to envelop him. He backed away. You're making a mistake. I'm not part of your culture. I don't even understand what's happening. I came here to recharge a neural sync pack and ended up in a whatever this is. One of the women, the one with deep violet hair and the most solemn eyes, moved toward him then, holding something in both hands. A sphere, no larger than a fist, made of woven light and crystal threads. She offered it without a word. Jace hesitated. What is it? It will show you, the leader said. The sphere floated from the violet-haired woman's palms and hovered in front of his face. Before he could think to move away, it exploded, not with sound or force, but with vision. He saw a planet with 7 moons, its surface scorched by conflict. A great hall carved from obsidian and bone. 6 figures, robed in white, standing around a broken pedestal. He saw a child clutching a glowing sigil identical to his own, crying out in a tongue he didn't recognize but somehow understood. The images overwhelmed him, past, present, possibility. His knees buckled and he fell forward, catching himself with one hand on the floor. The sigil on his hand flared like a brand, but it no longer felt alien. It pulsed with meaning, with history. He gasped and looked up. The sphere had vanished. What did you show me? He asked. The memory of the last speaker, said the leader. She died before the ritual could be completed. The bond fractured. The chamber has been silent since, until now. And you think I'm here to fix that? No, she said, stepping closer. We don't think. The chamber does. The others gathered around again, forming a loose circle. They began to hum, a low resonance that filled the chamber like a tide of soundless vibration. Their hands moved in unison, lifting the floating glyphs, aligning them in the air around Jace. The glow from the basin pulsed with their movements, casting pale light across the smooth floor. Jace stood up, heart racing. Look, even if I play along, what does this end with? Do I die? Get merged with some ancient alien god? The woman with silver ring braids laughed softly. No gods, only echoes. This is not a sacrifice. It is a sharing, a ritual of merging thought, added the violet-haired one. Your mind with ours, so we may understand each other beyond words. The idea should have terrified him. It should have sent him pounding on the sealed door, demanding release. But instead he felt a pull, like a magnet buried somewhere deep in his chest, aligning him to something vast and patient. He took a slow breath. And if I refuse? The leader didn't look offended. Then we will wait until you decide. Jace glanced at the floating discs, at the shimmering basin, at the calm eyes watching him without judgment. He had no training for this. He was just a tech, an Earthborn outsider with barely enough clearance to access mid-tier data nodes. But somewhere in that memory vision he had seen pain, loneliness, a system waiting for a voice to complete it. And he had heard something else, too, something ancient and quiet that lived in the bones of the chamber. Not a command, not even a plea, a hope. He stepped toward the basin. The light rippled in response. The 6 women watched him, no longer performers, but participants. The moment sharpened. The air crackled. I don't know what I'm doing, he said. The leader stepped behind him, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder. That is why you are worthy. As he touched the basin's surface, the chamber bloomed with light. The sigil on his hand spun wildly, then settled into a new shape, simpler but deeper. A bridge crossed, a connection formed. The ritual had begun. Jace awoke lying on a surface that wasn't quite solid. It shifted beneath him like memory foam soaked in warm light, cradling his back with a slow, breathing rhythm. The chamber was dim now. the luminous basin having faded to a soft pulse in the corner. He blinked upward. Above him, the ceiling rippled as though made of liquid crystal, reflecting fragments of his own face interspersed with foreign constellations. He sat up slowly. Every part of his body felt strange, weightless, yet grounded, numb, yet hypersensitive. The sigil on his hand had changed again. Now a single line curved into a spiral, faintly pulsing with his breath. The 6 women stood nearby, not in a circle this time, but in a loose cluster, watching him not with ceremony, but a curious intimacy. "You slept longer than expected," said the leader. She had a name now, Ceres. He had heard it whispered through their shared vision. I dreamed," Jay said, his voice hoarse. "But it didn't feel like my dream." The one with violet hair, Nia, he recalled, stepped forward, because it wasn't. The ritual merges more than language. It invites perception to walk freely between minds. Ceres nodded. "What you saw were fragments of our memory weave. Your presence stitched into it has opened long frozen strands." Jace pulled his knees to his chest, grounding himself. "So I'm part of your mind now?" "Not fully," said another, TLA, the analytical one, more like a conduit, a translator between thoughts that once had no path. He rubbed his face. "This is beyond anything I was trained for." "Exactly why it works," Nia said softly. "Your mind wasn't shaped to resist. It simply received." Jay stood unsteady. "And what now? Am I some kind of artifact? A glorified mental bridge?" The silver-braided one, Virii, serene and aloof, answered, "You are the unmarked, the one who entered without invitation, expectation, or burden. It grants you neutrality, influence without corruption." He wasn't sure he liked the sound of that. Influence felt like a dangerous thing to hand someone who didn't understand the rules. As he moved, the floor adjusted to support him. His clothes had been replaced with a loose robe of the same silken white they wore. Those was edged with shimmering gray, a color he somehow knew marked his role as intermediary. A chime echoed softly. Ceres turned her head toward the chamber wall. An invisible seam opened, and beyond it lay a hallway filled with pulsing bioluminescent strands. Alien figures passed, cloaked in shadows and light. "The council knows," she said. "They have summoned you." Jace's stomach sank. "The council? They oversee the echo chambers, and all who emerge from them. I thought this was private." "It was," TLA replied, "until the chamber marked you. Now you are part of the resonant path. You must be acknowledged." He clenched his fists. "I didn't ask for any of this." "No one ever does," Nia murmured, "but it changes nothing." They led him into the corridor, moving as one with silent precision. The ship seemed different now. It reacted to his presence, doors opening a fraction faster, light bending toward his path. He felt it in his bones. The ship had accepted him. The council chamber was vast and circular, its high walls alive with moving symbols and slowly rotating prisms. 6 figures stood on raised platforms, their faces obscured by translucent masks that shimmered with shifting expressions. Sarah stepped aside as Jace entered the center. The silence stretched long enough for discomfort to settle deep into his spine. Then one of the masked counselors spoke. "You are the speaker who was not chosen." Jace resisted the urge to glance back at the women. "I walked into the wrong room." "Or the right one," said another voice, older and deeper. "You have seen the inner weave." A third added, felt the resonance. "Your presence cannot be undone." He swallowed. "I didn't come to interfere. I was just lost." "And now," said the eldest, "you are found." Jace hesitated. "What exactly do you want from me?" "Nothing," said the first. "And everything. You're not bound by oath or blood, yet the chamber speaks through you. We ask only this. Remain here. Learn. Let your presence bridge what is fractured. And if I refuse, silence." Then Sarah stepped forward again, speaking not to the council, but to Jace directly. "If you leave, the chamber will go silent again. The echoes will fade. What was open will begin to rot." He stared at her. "You're saying your entire ritual system is tied to me now?" "Temporarily," TLA said from behind. Until the resonance stabilizes. Until a true successor emerges. The idea of being a placeholder in a society he barely understood did little to comfort him. But he remembered the images from the sphere, the broken pedestal, the grieving child, the silent halls echoing with absence. He had felt their pain. It wasn't abstract anymore. And then he realized the central conflict wasn't between him and them. It was within himself. The unwillingness to belong. The fear of maturing in a system too vast, too alien, too powerful to question. He took a breath. I'll stay. For now. But I want access to your history. I want to understand the rituals, the language threads, the failures. I'm not a symbol. I'm a translator. Let me do my job. There was a pause. Then, slowly, one by one, the counselors nodded. You will have it, said the eldest, and we will listen. As he turned to leave, Saris walked beside him. You speak boldly for someone unsure. I have to, Jace replied. If I don't, I'm just a vessel again, and I've spent my whole life being invisible. She looked at him. Not anymore. And as the doors closed behind them, Jace couldn't shake the feeling that, for better or worse, this mistake was beginning to feel a lot like destiny. The trial of reflection was older than the ship that carried it, older than the 6 women who now walked silently beside Jace toward its ceremonial hall. Even the corridors seemed to wear the moment's weight, lit not by cold fluorescence, but by living veins of gold and violet light that pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat anticipating climax. Jace kept his pace steady, though his chest buzzed with a mixture of nerves and resolve. The robe he wore was heavier now, lined with thin threads of luminescent script that pulsed in harmony with the sigil on his palm. Each time he glanced down at that mark, its spiral now accompanied by 3 outward-flowing arcs, he felt the invisible tether between him and the ship, between him and the 6 women, tighten. Saris walked just ahead of him, as she always did when the path was formal. She had taken a speaking lesson recent days, letting her eyes and presence say what words could not. At his left, Nia offered him a quick glance of reassurance. The others, TLA, Virii, Ensa, and Kale, flanked him without sound, their expressions focused, prepared. Guardians, witnesses, maybe something more. Jace exhaled slowly. The trial would not be a courtroom or contest. No one would debate or defend. Instead, he would be asked to stand inside a living construct known as the Mirror Well, a chamber of energy and memory that revealed truth through emotional resonance. He had been told it could not be lied to, that it would not show who you wished to be, but who you were beneath choice and conditioning. They arrived without fanfare. The chamber was circular and open, its walls made of suspended arcs of energy like curved glass held in place by thought alone. At its center hovered the Mirror Well, a tall, clear spire flickering with strands of pale blue light that wound around its core like coiled starlight. The council was already present. 6 masked figures stationed in an elevated ring around the space. This time, however, they did not speak. Jay stepped into the circle and halted before the spire. It didn't look like much. No theatrics, no divine light or thunderous voices. Just a construct of silence and weight. A stillness that asked for surrender. He looked to Saris, who gave the faintest nod. "Do I speak?" he asked. "You reflect," she replied. And with that, the mirror well activated. A pulse of light leapt from its surface and passed through him, not like a scan, but like a breeze filled with memory. He gasped as the air around him shifted, thickening with light. Then, without warning, he was no longer standing in the chamber. He stood on Earth, in the training quarters of the language division, surrounded by walls of books and scrolling holographs. His instructor stood before him, a stern man with piercing eyes and a cruel tongue. "You'll never lead," the voice echoed. "You speak other people's truths. You are a mouthpiece, not a mind." Then it shifted. He saw his childhood. Night spent alone in a silence no one noticed. A mother's distant touch. A father who had already left before Jace knew how to ask why. Then his first failure, his first heartbreak, his first memory of realizing that being unnoticed hurt more than being rejected. The mirror well peeled him apart in layers, not to harm, but to expose. It projected not only memory, but emotion, each moment stretched and examined by the audience and the ship itself. The 6 women watched without judgment. The council did not flinch. He had been warned. Vulnerability was not optional. Then it changed again. Jace saw his arrival on the Varelian Arkansas. The hallway. The wrong door. The moment the seal closed behind him, he saw the alien women turning toward him, their eyes filled not with fury, but with interest. Then the first time one of them touched him, not with dominance, but with recognition, he saw their faces now through new lenses, not as mystics or otherworldly figures, but as beings carrying centuries of responsibility, exhaustion and hope, the burden of tradition, the weight of waiting, and how, in their stillness, they had also been lost. Just like him, the mirror well dimmed, the images faded, silence returned. Jace opened his eyes slowly, tears slick on his cheeks but unwept. His legs trembled, but he stood tall. The eldest counselor spoke, her voice smooth as polished stone. "We have seen." Another added, "You are not perfect, but you are honest." "You do not understand our ways," said a third, "but you did not seek to reshape them in your image." "You carried our truth as if it were your own," said the fourth. A pause, and then the fifth said, "We accept your place among us." And finally, the sixth, "You are no longer the mistake. You are the moment." Jace released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He looked to Saris, to the others, and something unspoken passed between them. Something no translation device could have captured. Belonging. The chamber walls began to dissolve, fading into pale motes of light that drifted upward like fireflies. The mirror well dimmed to a gentle core blue and lowered itself back into the floor. The ritual was complete. As they turned to leave, Jace paused beside Saris. "What happens now?" She looked at him with the calm of a tide that had finally reached shore. "Now we begin again." Nia stepped beside him, a wry smile tugging at the corner of her lips. "Still think it was the wrong door?" Jace gave a small, breathless laugh. Maybe it was the only one that ever opened. They stepped forward together, the 6 flanking him once more, not as guardians or subjects, but equals walking into a future none of them could yet name. Behind them, the chamber pulsed once more. The echoes had found their speaker.